Let's get back to the minor leagues and start looking for some prospects that are ready to break out in the majors very soon. It's still nice to see so many prospects getting the call early in the season. It will continue. Now, they will slow down at some point, but right now there's still some big names that I honestly think this is the time to get them, because if you wait any longer, it might be too late. And let's start with the big one. A lot of people are asking, is Bubba Chandler going to be in the Pirates rotation sometime very soon? Well, the reason that people are asking is, number one, Paul Skeens, right? So Paul Skeens not only made some comments the other day about getting excited to reunite with him. He's my buddy, wants to see him up. Of course he does. Everybody does, not just Pirates fans. Just everybody wants to see an exciting young pitcher. But also, if we follow a similar timeline, it was almost a year ago, May 11th, when Skeens made his debut. We're getting pretty close. Could it be next week where we see Chandler get the call, similar time frame? There's no guarantee, all right? Just because that's what they do with Skeens doesn't mean they do it with Chandler. Not exactly the same pitcher, not exactly the same time frame, etc. But how much longer can they really wait? Chandler is going to force his way up to the big club. In 6 starts so far, a 1.42 ERA, 0.67 whip, and a strikeout rate of, let's just round up and say it's 40%. In his most recent start, went 5 innings and struck out 9, only gave up 1 run on 3 hits. I mean, there's nothing left to prove, right? But you understand, with any young pitcher, sure, they want to make sure he's fully ready, but also that they aren't going to push him too much too soon. I would say if you've got the room, you want to make Chandler a priority, especially if you need help in pitching. And again, there's not a whole lot of young pitchers I'm really going to make a priority in terms of adding in a redraft league and then trusting to actually put in my lineup. He's one of them. Had him really high on my preseason prospect list. Yeah, Chandler won't exactly be Paul Skeens, but I think he could be better than Jared Jones was early last season. That's still pretty good. Now, let's not forget about the Cubs. They have a top pitching prospect who might be pressed into action soon. Cade Horton is the club's number 2 overall prospect. And he's a guy who could have made a splash last year, except some shoulder troubles crept up early, and that pretty much wiped out his chances of contributing in the big club. But now, Justin Steele out for the season, and Shota Imanaga possibly out for a short time, aggravated the hamstring. You never know how that goes, right? Could be a minimal IL stint, could be something that nags and keeps him out. Do they go to Cade Horton? Because, I mean, there's not really a lot of other more appealing options. They have Chris Flexen. You might remember he's kind of bounced between the Mets and the Mariners. Really more ideally suited as a long relief guy, kind of an innings eater. Not someone you want in your starting rotation, especially if you're a legit contender like the Cubs. There's always Jordan Wicks, also fairly promising young pitcher who's taken his lumps. He's bounced back and forth. They could always go back to him. But, I mean, Horton has proven himself also, like I just talked about with Chandler, at the AAA level. If not for injury last year, it could have been his year. And so maybe they decide to give him a chance. Right now, he's got a 1.24 ERA, 0.86 whip in 5 starts. The strikeout rate is at 30.6%. The walks are a little bit high, in fact, higher than they were last year, but nothing that I think will prevent him from making the leap. And Craig Counsell did say he is a possibility. But again, we don't know anything definitively right now. But man, if Horton does get the call, I would be immediately interested in him almost everywhere. Unlike Bubba Chandler, who leads with the fastball and then has actually even better changeup, well, Horton is a little bit more finesse. He's got a slider as his primary pitch and his best pitch. He can induce a lot of whiffs with it. The fastball is good, but not great. But he also has a plus changeup and a pretty good curveball that he mixes in there. All told, he's got the stuff to be an effective starter, and maybe that happens starting right now. So let's stick with the Cubs, but actually on offense, if there's a team, any team really in the majors that you would think needs absolutely no help scoring runs, it's the Cubs, right? Maybe the Yankees too, although they've had some injuries here. There's no room for Moises Ballesteros, but they should make some. If there is one player offensively who's going to probably force his way up to the big club, despite being pretty young for his level again, and despite not having a true spot open for him, it's Moises Ballesteros. Guy's hitting .381 with 4 homers and 18 RBIs at the AAA level. Only 21 years old, and Ballesteros is a catcher by trade. Not a great catcher, but still, he can play the position. He's gotten a little bit better defensively. He can also play first base, and of course, you can always just stick him at DH. But we're talking about the Cubs. Where does he actually fit in? Look at catcher. They're fine right now. Carson Kelly has been swinging a hot bat like they all have been. And then Miguel Amaya is a pretty serviceable number two catcher. First base, I think they're okay with Michael Bush. And then DH, you got Seiya Suzuki. And again, they're not having trouble scoring. So why bring him up now? Because there's no reason to keep him down. And look, if this guy can help your club, just do it. And yeah, he's only 21, but he already has extensive experience at AAA. Last year, already had 260 at bats at the AAA level. He just does not care about his age, does not care about the competition. He's mashing everywhere he goes. And the one thing you always look for, at least I do, is the plate discipline. Will that play when you get the call to the majors? And how about a 10% strikeout rate at the highest minor league level? I mean, look, this is not going to be a problem. And despite being a power bat, guy who might stick in a corner, infield, outfield, DH, wherever, it does not matter. The bat is ready. So this is a case where I'm going to say, even though it doesn't look like a call up is imminent, I'm stashing him now anyways because it will happen. It needs to happen. And of course, any moment, injuries are always happening. It's basically a war of attrition, right? That's what it is. And so when somebody goes down, they're going to need some reinforcements, and he's got to be the next man up. All right, now on offense, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, needs all the help they can get, is the Texas Rangers. You probably already know, outside of the Rockies, they are the worst offense in the majors. And you know what? They can tell. They are making some moves, finally, thankfully. Will it pay off? Well, it can't get any worse, can it? First, they optioned Jake Berger down to the minors, which was surprising, but definitely warranted. They just released Leody Taveras, who had lost playing time altogether. He is gone. And they went ahead and they fired their offensive coordinator, which was definitely deserved. So after all that, the Rangers decided they're bringing him back, Evan Carter. Now, I know you might say, Evan Carter doesn't belong here. He's not a prospect. He already had sort of a mini breakout, right, a couple years ago. And to that, I'd say, I don't care. I'm putting Carter here. He has not broken out. And man, after last year and the start of this year where he didn't even make the club, yeah, absolutely. We're still waiting for something from him other than a small stretch at the end of 2023 where he was sort of hot. This guy was basically a massive bust last year, one of the worst draft busts that you could have had. And then this year, again, it was not even worth drafting, hasn't been worth stashing. And I don't even know if he's worth picking up right now because they did call him up because, yeah, they need him to prove something. He wasn't even doing that great at the minor league level, hitting 221 at AAA. Yeah, sure, maybe this is just a move out of sheer desperation, trying to do something to kickstart that offense, trying to take one of their most talented hitters who has not helped them at all and see if he can help them. I mean, he can't really do much in the minors, right? They don't really care how he does at AAA. They need him to do something right here, right now. And if he's not going to, maybe they just move on from him. So I will say, I'm skeptical. Look, I was all over Evan Carter. I was one of those. I fell for it last year, right? The small sample. And even though he does have the hit tool, he has some pretty good speed, he has power, he has everything that it takes to be a star outfielder. He just hasn't done it. And I know the health issues, the neck thing, clearly a concern, although it hasn't limited him this year. I mean, he hasn't been on the injured list, so I don't think we should worry too much about that right now. I'm just worried about him actually producing when he gets called up. So I'm only going to stash him if it's a pretty deep league, a 15-teamer, an AL only, a keeper, really deep benches, etc. So I'll watch, I'll wait, and I'll see if it clicks. But I have a plan B for you, and I hope the Rangers do too. So if Carter doesn't work out, or if somebody else from the Rangers goes, or if Corey Seager goes in IL again, it's going to happen. What about another guy who flopped spectacularly last year? Justin Foscue. He is their number 14 prospect right now. There was a little bit of buzz when he got called up to the Rangers last year. I've seen some bad major league debuts. This was absurdly bad. I'm not sure how much worse you can do than 2 for 42 with 18 strikeouts and 2 walks. That would be an 0.48 batting average, a 0.80 xWOBA. So clearly not ready for the show. What about this year? Well, it remains to be seen, but he's responded well at AAA. He's hitting 300 and gives you a little power, a little speed, but also a pretty low 18.8% strikeout rate, which actually is a little bit higher than he had posted previously. I mean, he was great in the minors, which is why they decided to give him a shot last year. Let's see if this second chance turns out any better. Now, again, I say that, and there are no imminent plans to call Foscue up, as far as I know. But with all the moves the Rangers are doing, they need to. By the way, much needed moves that they need to make, long overdue. They're shaking things up, and like I said, someone else gets hurt, someone else gets sent down. Maybe Carter doesn't work out. I think Foscue is and should be the next choice. All right, now back to Chicago, but this time the White Sox. I'm gonna give credit to one of our loyal viewers, Eddie Buzz, who threw out this name. I was really just not familiar with Tim Elko, and that's because you probably aren't either, because Tim Elko isn't even a top 30 prospect for the worst team. Oh, wait, sorry, Rockies. Second worst team in all of baseball, the Chicago White Sox. I mean, it's hard enough to trust any of those young players, much less a guy who isn't really on the radar. I'll tell you what, though, maybe we do see Elko at some point because he is mashing at AAA and he's showing that maybe he deserves a shot. Hitting 333, got 10 homers already with 21 RBIs. Elko is a slugger. I mean, there's no denying that. That's what he is, right? Is he going to be any worse than Andrew Vaughn, is what people ask. And you know what? He probably isn't much worse, but let's wait and see. I mean, I don't think that they are going to all of a sudden displace Vaughn as much as White Sox fans and maybe fantasy players want that to happen. I don't see it happening just yet. If you want to know what I think Elko is going to be, you remember Oscar Colas, also the White Sox organization, a little bit higher on the prospect rankings. I mean, Elko is basically a right-handed Oscar Colas. And that's not a great comp because Colas didn't hang very well when he got called up last year. But again, you never know. Guys respond differently. Maybe Elko is, a little bit less pressure on him, not being expected to do much. But I just don't know when, if at all, he's going to get a shot. And then finally, I don't know how many times I need to mention Roman Anthony before it happens, whenever it happens. I think it's appropriate now to send that reminder just because we did see Tristan Casas out for the season. Very fortunate for him. He had just started to figure things out. Now, that doesn't leave a logical spot on the roster for Anthony being an outfielder, but you never know. When they decide they need a spark in that offense, it might be time to call him up. So far, they've been fine. They've made do with what they've got. But again, I'm just going to say if you want the number one prospect in the entire game and you've got any room anywhere on your bench and he's available in your league, just pick him up now. Just do it. Those are the prospects you should be stashing now while you can. What about those panic players, the one you're not sure about, those veterans? Well, check out this week's edition. I'll tell you what I think.